In 2023, United Nations Climate Change Conference, better known as COP28, concluded in Dubai on Tuesday. The annual event aims to propel the world toward a more climate-friendly future. And for more on what took place, I'm going to bring in Vince Molinari, the founder and CEO of FINTECH TV. He's joining us now. Good morning, Vince.
Good morning, Trinity. My goodness, what great segues. Everything from Climate and Capital Conference to the Explorers Club. Perfect day.
We cover it all here at NYSE TV Live, but I want to talk about your trip. You arrived bright-eyed and bushy-tailed straight from Dubai. Well, Abu Dhabi, actually. Yes, another very important major city. Tell me about your trip.
So, amazing trip when we got to collaborate again with Abu Dhabi Global Markets for Abu Dhabi Finance Week and really elevating everything that's happening in the UAE across climate change, transition to from fossil fuels to regulatory frameworks around digital assets, and the team staying on in Dubai for COP28, and so much to talk about. As Patricia Wu stayed there all week from the green zone and the blue zone with our partnership with Abu Dhabi Global Markets, and also GASP in the blue zone, elevating these conversations.
Now, it was obviously Financial Week in Abu Dhabi. Tell me about what the major key takeaways were.
Well, they're calling Abu Dhabi the capital of capital now. It has really become home to large investment firms, asset managers, really embracing the regulatory framework within the International Financial Center of ADGM. So great magnet for capital, digital transformation, really embracing regulatory frameworks that elevate and accelerate blockchain DLT movement.
And tell me about, I know that your team stayed behind to cover more of COP28 and that wrapped yesterday. Tell me about what the key takeaways were for there and why was it so imperative that your presence was there as well?
Well, it's imperative of FinTech TV, and I think the New York Stock Exchange to be having these conversations, particularly as the New York Stock Exchange is a member of the United Nations Sustainable Stock Exchange Initiative, and a leader and elevating this iconic exchange around the world. So I think when you bring that forward in COP28 and having these conversations around energy transformation, looking at how do you create new financial instruments that advance sustainability, New York Stock Exchange being in the center of so much of that conversation. But I think the key takeaway is looking at the accord, and we had, if you remember back to Climate Week, His Excellency Dr. Sultan Al-Jaber ringing the bell here at the New York Stock Exchange, amplifying COP28. To come away with 198 countries agreeing now unanimously during COP to reduce fossil fuel consumption is a huge win for COP28 and the world. Much different. The first time they ever used the words coal, oil, and gas within the context of a UN COP28 agreement. So big moment.
It's a huge moment. I mean, so what do you think is next? I mean, as we continue to transition away from fossil fuels and now that this accord has been met, what do you think is next?
I think it's the implementation, right? So you have some negativity and some folks like small island nations who are saying it didn't go far enough because they're traditionally the ones disproportionately affected by climate. You have the Arctic countries saying, hey, we're heating up 4 times faster than anyone else, so we need to have a bigger voice at the table. And you have OPEC, who's sitting there, was much more focused on emissions versus the fuels themselves. So I think it's going to be about implementation. I think it's going to be sticking to the accords. But I think it's this visibility now that the words, and it's not just transitioning away, it was reducing. Big change in language, and language is so important with anything around the United Nations.
Would you say that those are the biggest challenges, the biggest hurdles that we have to overcome?
I think it's education awareness starting and really just everything that's happening in the UAE. I certainly didn't realize until we started reporting there a couple of years ago how committed they are to sustainability, to transitioning away from fossil fuel. So that education and finding the alternative sources that are going to power our planet.
And I want to talk about FinTech TV for a minute. Earlier this month, FinTech TV announced a partnership with the Global Alliance. Tell me more about this.
Well, the Secretary General, Satya Tripathi, awesome gentleman, was a senior leader at the United Nations. He formed the Global Alliance for the Sustainable Planet to elevate conversations, but also to move capital to the goals of 2030. So we are so privileged and honored to create that partnership and amplify all the things that we love to do at media.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Vince, for joining me today.
Trinity, it was my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.